all afraid of. I mean, there's old people, young people waking up in the morning and all they've got on their mind is what's happening in this country, what's happening to us.
40,000 paramedics have walked off the job. That's not a scheduling issue. That's not a labor dispute. That's a full-blown system-wide alarm, and the sirens aren't even working anymore. Right now in the UK, 61 emergency zones have, with tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now. It's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. Collapsed. Not slowed down. Not reorganized. Collapsed. Emergency calls are being rerouted across county lines. Zones 1 staffed 24/7 are now flagged red. The routes paramedics used to drive? Blocked. Unsafe. And in some cases, outright abandoned. And the government? Still pretending this is under control. Officials continue to push the narrative that things are manageable. But according to internal dispatch logs and frontline reports, there's nothing manageable about tripled response times, inaccessible neighborhoods, or emergency workers refusing to enter zones out of fear for their own lives. That's not control. That's collapse. And it's accelerating. The people at the heart of this, those 40,000 paramedics, didn't just clock out because of burnout. They left because they are being harassed, threatened, and surrounded by hostile crowds. They are being blocked from reaching patients. They are getting assaulted on the job. This isn't about poor conditions. It's about safety being gone. They are not protesting. They are protecting themselves. And yet, the system expects them to keep rolling into danger with a straight face and a clean uniform. This is no longer just a healthcare crisis. This is a breakdown of public order. Social disorder has reached a level where paramedics are now actively being kept out of certain communities. These aren't rare, extreme cases. This is widespread. Zones are being downgraded because no one can get in or out safely. There's a growing list of places where emergency services no longer function. No one is saying it officially, but internally, these are being labeled what they are, no-go zones. And it gets worse. Internal reports reveal that even where response is still technically possible, crews are second-guessing every call. Dispatchers are sending warnings along with location data. Medical teams are asking if police backup is available before they even move. When the first question is, will we get there alive, the priorities shift. Lives are lost before help even arrives. That's the reality. This isn't, I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets, but I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe and like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. Theory. This isn't fear-mongering. It's right there in the documents. Emergency infrastructure in the UK is spiraling into functional collapse. Public safety has become a variable, not a guarantee. And while the front line is waving red flags, leadership is still polishing statements about strategic adaptation. That's the disconnect. The leadership speaks in press releases. The workers are speaking from the front lines of a crumbling system. And the public? They are caught in the middle, left to wonder whether help will come when they need it most. Because right now, that's not a certainty. The delays alone are devastating. Tripled response times don't just mean inconvenience. They mean death. Critical windows for life-saving treatment are being missed. Ambulances are showing up too late. Sometimes not at all. And when they do arrive, the crews are often navigating blocked streets, angry crowds, or total chaos. That's the operational side. But what about the psychological toll? According to dispatch logs, the shift in tone has been sharp. Crews are reporting fear, constant anxiety, a sense that they are being sent into environments where they are not just unsupported, but actively targeted. That doesn't just change the job. It breaks it. You can't ask people to save lives in places where their own safety isn't considered. Not sustainably. Not ethically. And yet, that's exactly what's being asked. The social unrest that's fueling this isn't a separate issue. It's the engine behind the collapse. The tension between migrant populations and local communities. The overcrowded housing. The fracturing of trust. It's all spilling over. It's transforming once functional neighborhoods into flashpoints. When trust dies, cooperation dies. And when that happens, emergency response becomes impossible. This is what fragmentation looks like. This is what happens when public systems are stretched thin for too long, and when the root issues, poverty, overpopulation, community resentment, are ignored in favor of short-term policy wins. Emergency workers are expected to operate like none of this matters. They are sent into collapsing communities with no additional protection, no systemic support, and no honest public acknowledgement of what they are facing. And the result? Withdrawal. Mass withdrawal. 40,000 paramedics refusing to work in high-risk zones is not a scheduling hiccup. It's a collapse of confidence. They don't believe they'll be protected. And frankly, the reports say they're right. Routes have been deemed unsafe. Not once or twice. You've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm. Repeatedly. Some dispatch logs now include street names where crews won't go, places where ambulances are met with hostility, not relief, where even police won't guarantee safe passage. So how does the government respond? By insisting everything is fine. That's the pattern. Acknowledge nothing. Deny the risk. Reframe the facts. Sell stability, even if it's fiction. But internal documents don't lie. And those documents paint a very different picture, one of rapid degradation and barely patched over gaps in coverage. It's all reactive. No planning. No prevention. Just triage. Patch the zones at full. Rear out the coals. Pretend it's not a trend. Until the next one breaks. And every single day, the problem gets worse. This isn't a staffing issue anymore. It's a societal emergency. It's a question of whether the country can protect the very people tasked with protecting us. When emergency responders start asking, who's going to protect me? That's not a rhetorical question. That's a bottom falling out. And if those on the front lines don't feel safe, what does that mean for everyone else? This isn't about individual neighborhoods. This is about national infrastructure unraveling. When zones collapse, they don't do it in isolation. The burden shifts. Adjacent areas are forced to cover more ground with fewer people. And the dominoes keep falling. You can see it in the numbers. Every hour a zone goes dark, the rest of the system absorbs more pressure. Delays multiply. Errors increase. And more responders start to question whether they should stay. This is how a spiral works. Each failure feeds the next. It's not a staffing shortage. It's a loss of faith. A faith that leadership will step in, that threats will be addressed, that danger zones won't be normalized. But instead, those zones are being normalized, and those pulling out aren't being replaced. It's become clear that this isn't a temporary crisis. It's not a disruption. It's a shift, a breaking point. The emergency system the UK relied on is no longer guaranteed. Its coverage is conditional. And the government's silence is only making it worse. Because when the state refuses to acknowledge a reality, it sends a message, not just to responders, but to the public. You're on your own. And in many of these zones, they already are. The big question now isn't whether the system is broken. It is. The question is, who's going to fix it? And how? That starts with honesty, with a public acknowledgement that this isn't about bad scheduling or bad weather. It's about systemic failure, about years of policy neglect, social division. With tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now, it's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting and political denial. Until that happens, the spiral continues. Zones will keep collapsing. Paramedics will keep walking. Communities will keep burning. And the public will be left wondering why help never came. If you want more raw, reality-based breakdowns of the stories that actually matter, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe. We cover the stories others try to sanitize, and we're just getting started. And here's what no one in power is willing to say aloud. This isn't just about emergency services anymore. What we're witnessing is a mirror held up to the state of the nation. Because when 40,000 paramedics walk off the job and 61 zones fall out of service, the question isn't just, where are the ambulances? It's, how did we let this happen? And the answer? Years of neglect, denial, and dangerous political cowardice. Let's stop pretending this is a sudden development. The writing has been on the wall for a long time. Paramedics have been warning about unsafe conditions for years. Communities have been fraying at the edges for even longer. But every time a red flag was raised, it was met with a shrug, a shallow statement, or some reworded pledge to evaluate the situation. But now, there's no situation left to evaluate. It's broken. The system has gone from barely functioning to actively failing. And the people tasked with holding it together, they're exhausted, they are terrified, and they are done being disposable. Because that's how it feels when the government ignores internal data, downplays violence against crews, and lets frontline workers fend for themselves in increasingly volatile environments. These aren't just unsafe zones, they are flashpoints, where responders are walking into hostile territory, not knowing if they'll make it out, where the presence of an ambulance isn't calming, it's confrontational. And when an emergency vehicle becomes a trigger instead of a relief, that's not just a public safety issue. That's a societal red alert. And yet, the government insists on smiling through it. We are adapting. We remain confident in the system. Public safety is our top priority. All while internal dispatch logs say otherwise. All while frontline crews are left debating whether to even enter a neighborhood. All while response times skyrocket and entire sections of the country operate with no functioning emergency coverage. This is not adaptation. This is abandonment. And here's what that abandonment looks like in real time. Patients dying while waiting for help. Families stuck on hold. Crews begging for backup. I know things feel really heavy in the UK right now. There's a lot of division and noise on the streets. But I want this channel to be a place where we can come together. If you want to be part of a supportive community, please subscribe. And like this video to show some love to everyone feeling anxious about the state of things right now. Stay safe out there, everyone. Dispatchers making impossible choices between bad and worse, and all of it being dressed up behind a curtain of policy language and media deflection. But behind the scenes, the emergency system is being held together with duct tape and silence. And there's no plan to fix it. Just reaction after reaction. Zone fails, reroute the calls. Violence escalates, reassign the crew. Another walkout, shift the coverage. Again. It's a loop of desperation that never gets to the root problem, that the front line has lost trust in leadership and communities have lost trust in the system. And when both sides step back, collapse is inevitable. Right now, responders are being treated like interchangeable cogs, expected to step into danger with no meaningful support, no systemic changes, and no public acknowledgement of what they're really facing. And for what? To keep up the illusion that everything's still under control? To protect political narratives while public safety falls apart? Because that's what this is really about, narratives. The story being told at the top doesn't match the reality at the bottom. Government officials keep pushing this line about stability, while internal data screams instability. They are selling resilience while the ground is eroding beneath everyone's feet. Meanwhile, the people in the street, those waiting for help, those making the calls, are left in the middle of a system that stopped working. And the result? A slow motion unraveling. Every zone collapse ripples outward. When a response area fails, it creates overflow for the next. Rerouted calls cause delays. Delays lead to deaths. Crews become demoralized. And the spiral tightens. It's not linear. It's exponential. And it's accelerating. Because this isn't just about 61 zones. It's about what those 61 represent. The limits of a national emergency network stretch so thin, it can no longer stretch any further. And yet, there's still silence from the top. No emergency briefings. No transparency. No admission of how dire this really is. And without that honesty, nothing changes. Paramedics aren't walking out because they're weak. They're walking out because they've been strong for too long in a system that gives them nothing back. No protection. No policy reform. No respect. They are walking because they've been shouted at, blocked, threatened, assaulted, and then expected to smile and do it again tomorrow, all while government officials deny the severity of what they are going through. At a certain point, even the most loyal worker chooses survival over service. You've seen the headlines, but the atmosphere down here is completely different. Subscribe so you don't miss the raw footage I'm releasing later this week, and like this video to help push this unfiltered reporting up the algorithm. And that's where we are now. This isn't just a workforce crisis. It's a national reckoning. Because when you lose the emergency services, the first people to show up when everything else goes wrong, you lose the spine of the country. You lose the basic guarantee that someone will come when you dial 999. And when that guarantee breaks, everything else starts to unravel too. Because the truth is, if emergency responders can't go into a neighborhood safely, who can? What happens when more communities get added to the too dangerous list? What happens when entire boroughs, towns, or cities are left unprotected? We're closer to that reality than most people know. And the only reason the system hasn't completely collapsed is because of the few who haven't walked yet, the ones still shooting up, still responding, still risking it. But even they are nearing the edge. Internal messages from crew leads and dispatchers are full of hesitation, fear, and resignation. They don't say, how can we fix this? They say, how much longer can we hold on? And the answer? Not long. You can only run on fumes for so many shifts. You can only endure so much hostility before the calculation changes. And once more those holdout zones fall, the fallback options shrink, then vanish. This is what collapse looks like, not with one single crash, but with a slow, grinding loss of coverage, safety, and faith. One shift at a time, one zone at a time, until there's nothing left to reroute. And the saddest part? It didn't have to be like this. There were warnings, years of them, from unions, from reports, from the crews themselves. But they were dismissed, downplayed, ignored. And now the cost is being paid, not just by the paramedics, but by the public, by the people waiting for help that isn't coming, by the patients who die not because their condition was too severe, but because the system never showed up, by the responders who are being told to keep calm and carry on, into areas where even law enforcement hesitates to go. So what's left? Right now, a country is holding its breath, hoping the illusion holds a little longer, that another zone doesn't fall, that another crew doesn't walk, that the system, broken as it is, can limp along one more day. But hope isn't a plan. And without truth, without transparency, and without urgent reform, there's only one direction this is heading. And everyone knows it. So here we are, 40,000 paramedics gone, 61 emergency zones down, a country staring into the abyss of a public safety collapse, while leadership keeps rearranging press releases like deck chairs on the Titanic. And the silence, with tensions rising across the UK and thousands taking to the streets of London right now, it's more important than ever to see the full picture. If you want to stay updated on the situation as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I'm covering the angles the mainstream media might miss, like this video if you believe in unfiltered reporting. It's deafening. Not just silence from officials who refuse to admit the truth, but from those who know what's happening and are too afraid or too exhausted to say it out loud. Because once you speak the truth, there's no going back. And the truth is this: the UK's emergency response system isn't just under pressure, it's in free fall. And no one is reaching for the brakes. Across the country, emergency crews are watching neighborhoods turn into black holes. Places they used to serve daily are now listed in briefings with phrases like standby only or delayed access. Translation? Don't go in unless you absolutely have to. And sometimes, even then, it's a no. And this isn't just in the most deprived boroughs or conflict-heavy areas. The collapse is spreading. What started in high-risk zones is now impacting places that never used to have issues. Why? Because when 40,000 people stop showing up, their absence doesn't stay local. It spreads. It drains everything around it. It's like a fire. And the government keeps throwing wet napkins on it. And behind all this is the same tired strategy: deny, deflect, delay. Refuse to acknowledge the role of social breakdown. Refuse to discuss overcrowded housing, tensions around migrant integration, and the rise in localized unrest. Pretend these are unrelated issues. Pretend they're not directly impacting response times, crew safety, and basic service reliability. But internal reports tell a different story. Dispatch teams are flagging incidents that would have been routine a few years ago, now tagged as hostile or high risk. Crews are radioing in with warnings. Paramedics are asking, in plain language, "Do I have to go in there?" Because they know what waits for them. And often, it's not a patient. It's a crowd, angry, suspicious, blocking their way, threatening violence. That's not a rare exception anymore. That's daily protocol in dozens of zones. And the politicians? They are still clinging to statements like the system remains functional. Functional for who? Because it's not functional for the crews who can't safely do their jobs. It's not functional for the patients who die waiting for help. It's not functional for the public relying on emergency services that now come with a disclaimer. This system isn't functioning. It's flinching. It's ducking. It's collapsing in slow motion while the people responsible for saving it pretend nothing's happening. And in that gap, between reality and denial, lives are being lost. You want to know how you get to this point? You stop listening. The warnings were there. Every internal report, every leaked communication, every frontline testimony, it's all been screaming for attention. Screaming that the system was already on the edge. And instead of acting, they spun it, smoothed it over, talked about resilience, about commitment. But commitment means nothing without action. You can't claim to care about public safety while ignoring the fact that your own emergency responders don't feel safe. You can't claim stability while entire sections of the country go without reliable coverage. You can't pretend it's business as usual when paramedics are telling dispatch they are scared to get out of the vehicle. And you definitely can't claim progress when the data shows the opposite. Because let's talk about that data. Response times aren't just rising. They're exploding. In some areas, they tripled. That's not a minor hiccup. That's the difference between a life saved and a life lost. And with fewer and fewer available crews, those numbers are only going in one direction. Downward spiral. Every hour worse than the last. And here's where it gets truly chilling. The internal logs show a growing trend of calls simply not being answered. Not because no one cares, but because there's no one left to answer them. Entire calls dropped. Critical emergencies triaged in nowhere. Because the zones they're in, they're red, off limits, too dangerous. Or there's just no unit within range to help. And the public? Most don't even know this is happening until it's a call that doesn't get through. Then it's too late. And when they ask why, they are met with silence, or worse, with carefully worded statements that sound reassuring, but mean absolutely nothing. Efforts are ongoing to ensure safe delivery of services in high-challenge areas. That's what they say instead of, "We've lost control of these zones, and help is no longer guaranteed." And that dishonesty, that's part of the collapse too. Because when people lose trust in the system, it doesn't just affect emergencies. It breaks the social contract. It creates a population that doesn't believe help is coming. And when people believe that, they start taking matters into their own hands. We're already seeing that shift. More civilians are transporting trauma patients themselves. More bystanders are intervening in dangerous situations without support. More communities are trying to police and treat their own. Not out of choice, but out of necessity. And that's a recipe for chaos. You can't replace a national emergency system with DIY heroism. It doesn't scale. It doesn't protect. And it doesn't address the root cause of any of this. Which is this: we are no longer facing a logistical failure. This is a full-on socio-political crisis. One rooted in deep mistrust, widespread social fragmentation, and years of underinvestment in the very structures meant to hold the country together. You cannot separate what's happening in these zones from the broader social tension. The overcrowding, the unrest, the division, it's all connected. And until that's addressed, this won't be fixed. Because the emergency response system doesn't operate in a vacuum. It relies on functioning communities, mutual trust, and safe access. And right now, all three are breaking down. And still, the government line doesn't change. They won't admit this is bigger than a workforce issue. They won't say that entire sections of the country are now seen as too volatile for paramedics to enter. They won't acknowledge that public safety has become a postcode lottery. Because if they admit it, they own it. And no one wants to do that. So the collapse continues. Every delay, every rerouted call, every zone that fails, every paramedic who walks off, never to return. It's not random. It's not temporary. It's a direct result of years of denial. And unless something shifts drastically, soon, it won't just be 61 zones. It'll be 100, then 150. Because once trust is gone and the responders are gone, the whole structure falls. And when that happens, there's no backup plan. So let's just lay it out plainly. There is no functioning emergency response system in large parts of the UK right now. It's not that it's slow. It's not that it's understaffed. It's that it's broken, in some areas, completely gone. Paramedics have left in massive numbers. High-risk zones have been blacklisted. Calls are going unanswered. Routes are either blocked, rerouted, or shut down altogether. And the ones who haven't left yet? They are hanging on by a thread. This isn't a bug in the system. It is a system now. And if you're waiting for someone in power to step up and say, "We've lost control of emergency response in over 60 zones," don't hold your breath. That kind of truth-telling doesn't make it into televised statements. It lives in leaked documents, in whistleblower messages, and in dispatch logs that were never meant for public eyes. But those logs tell the truth. They show response times that have tripled. They show zones marked enter with police escort only. They show crews refusing to respond, not out of defiance, but out of fear. They show routes marked with terms like hostile, barricaded, or access restricted due to violence. And when the front line is waving red flags and the government is waving it off, that's not just a failure of leadership, it's a betrayal. Because the people who signed up to save lives are being sent into danger without protection, then blamed when they say no. They are being told that things are under control while they are being shouted at, blocked, threatened, or assaulted just for trying to do their job. Let's be very clear. This is not just a workforce issue. This is not something you fix with a few new hires or a PR campaign. You can't recruit your way out of systemic collapse. Not when the people leaving aren't just tired, they are scared. Not when the conditions haven't changed. Not when the violence is escalating, the communities are fragmenting, and the trust required to make emergency services work has disintegrated. Because that's the part no one seems to want to admit. The reason emergency services function is because they operate on a foundation of trust, a belief that when a responder shows up, the community helps, not hinders, that bystanders clear the way, not form a barrier, that the person in the uniform is seen as a lifeline, not a threat. But in many places now, that's gone. Paramedics are reporting situations where the ambulance door opens and they are immediately met with aggression, where crowds gather not to assist, but to intimidate, where getting to the patient is no longer guaranteed, because the responders have to navigate the crowd before they can even begin saving a life. And these aren't exaggerations. They are documented. Frontline reports now include references to crowd obstruction, verbal threats, and physical intimidation as routine parts of the job. Not exceptional cases, routine. So how exactly is this still being framed as a manageable situation? Because a political strategy right now is simple. Deny the scale, delay the response, deflect the blame. And the result? Public confusion. A dangerous gap between what people are told and what's really happening. A country where residents still think they can count on emergency services until the moment they realize no one's coming. And that moment, it's happening more and more often. People are calling, waiting, watching, only to find that the ambulance has been rerouted or can't enter their street or never dispatched at all. And when they ask why, they get told the system is under strain. As if that explains anything. As if that justifies someone dying on the floor of their home with no one coming through the door. But that's a reality now. And the gap between leadership and reality is what's killing this system faster than anything. Because the people on the ground know what's going on. The paramedics, the dispatchers, the call handlers, the first responders. They've seen the shift. They feel it every day. The tension, the risk, the growing sense that no one's steering the ship. And yet, they keep being told to carry on, as if they are not already carrying more than they can bear. This is the part that cuts the deepest. The front line is screaming, "We can't keep doing this." And instead of change, they get accused of abandoning their posts, of creating panic, of being disloyal, when in reality, they've been loyal longer than anyone deserved. They've stayed when others walked. They've answered calls in neighborhoods flag red. They worked 14-hour shifts in war zone conditions without backup. And when they finally said, enough, it was after giving everything they had and being left with nothing in return. And still, the public doesn't know how bad it's gotten. Because when the government keeps the optics clean and the headlines stay vague, most people assume the system still works. That maybe it's under pressure, but it's still there. But here's the truth. In 61 zones, it's not there anymore. In 40,000 roles, it's not there anymore. And if the current trajectory continues, even the remaining zones, the stable ones, won't hold. Because the system wasn't designed to carry this kind of weight. And it definitely wasn't designed to survive this level of denial. And yet, denial is still the official stance. No acknowledgement of the real risks. No strategy for rebuilding trust in high-risk communities. No plan for respond to safety. No effort to confront the social unrest that's turned paramedics into targets instead of saviors. Just the same hollow language. Commitment to public safety. Meanwhile, the frontline is writing resignation letters. Response zones are being downgraded. Emergency routes are being shut. And public confidence is quietly evaporating. Because how do you believe in a system that doesn't believe in itself? You don't. And once the public figures that out, once they stop calling, stop expecting help, stop believing, it's not just the emergency system that breaks. It's everything that relies on it. Social order, public trust, civil stability. All of it depends on the belief that someone will answer when you dial for help. So when that belief disappears, the fallout is bigger than anyone's ready to admit. Because what we're seeing now is not just a breakdown of services. It's a breakdown of the idea that someone, somewhere, is still in control. That there's still a plan. That there's still someone to call. Right now, for tens of thousands of people across dozens of zones, there isn't. There's just a quiet collapse, and a government that refuses to say the word. The truth is, we're not just running out of time. We're running out of people willing to keep this broken system standing. 40,000 paramedics didn't walk away for nothing. They walked away because the job stopped being about saving lives and started being about surviving the shift. They walked because no one listened. Because they were shouted down by the very system they served. Because they were sent into chaos without protection and expected to keep smiling. You don't recover from that with a hiring campaign. You don't fix it with a press conference. And you definitely don't solve it by pretending it's all under control. Every delay, every call rerouted to nowhere, every zone that slips into silence, that's not a fluke. That's the new normal. And once you normalize collapse, it becomes almost impossible to reverse. You don't rebuild trust overnight. You don't replace 40,000 trained professionals with good intentions. And you can't operate a nationwide emergency network on denial. This moment we're in, it's not a bump in the road. It's a warning. A very loud, very urgent warning that the safety net people think is already unraveled. And in some places, it's completely gone. So if this is the first time you're hearing the full scope of it, ask yourself, why? Why is something this massive not being treated like the crisis it clearly is? Why are the people we rely on being pushed to the brink while politicians talk about resilience? And most importantly, who benefits from pretending this isn't happening? Because if no one's being held accountable, if no one's taking responsibility, if the people on the ground are still screaming into the void, then it's up to us to make noise that can't be ignored. So share this, comment, subscribe, speak the truth louder than the silence trying to bury it. Because the longer we wait for someone else to fix this, the more we'll realize no one's coming. Not unless we make them.